I started working, becoming an active member of society at a young age. A lot of it was hands-on based. So even, through high school, even through university, there was a lot of, landscaping work in the summers, things like that, pool making, deck building, things like that. So, I found, especially working in those, you're working in hot summer environments, you're shoveling and things like that. You're in like a pool pit, sweating all day, and that was one of those things that's character building. But I think it also played into, who I am now and how I worked into university and my job I'm in now. In that there was a lot of kind of dedication, a lot of you know pride in the work I did. But at the end of the day, you're working for someone else, right? You're building their deck, you're building their pool, what have you. But at the end of the day, you're working hard all day. And so I think I worked that in to my university application, and I think they recognized the dedication to work. And I know that it did play a role, coming out of university, understanding that, yeah, there's a lot to be said about putting your nose to the grindstone and realizing that, listen, at the end of the day, there's a job to do. Let's get it done, whether you're comfortable with it or not. So that also played into my university, in that I understood that, engineering took a lot of dedication, a lot of work. And, unlike some of the other faculties, you don't get all the time to party or what have you. But, came out of university, applied to the job I'm in now currently. I'm working there for 7.5 years now. And I recall through the interview process, them asking me, what I've done. And a lot of what I had done leading up to that had nothing to do with what I'm doing now. It was, the hands-on, dedicated work. But I think I played it that way, but I think they also saw and recognized that, sometimes at the end of the day, it's about putting in the hard work, and whether you know it or not, you'll learn it. You'll put in that work and you'll learn what you need to learn. And I think, going through the interview, I was a little nervous at not having experience, but a bit of personality helps, and playing out the fact that, you are willing to put your nose down and get to work. That really, I think that landed me the job at the end of the day. I recall at one point during the interview, they had asked me, "Oh, what's the difference between a phase one and a phase two?" And I actually got it wrong, and it seemed to not phase them in understanding that, whether I have it right or wrong, I'll learn it, I'll get it right eventually, and I'm going to put my effort and my all into it, and I'll become an expert one day. So I think that helped a lot, and that played in. Yeah, and so that's kind of what landed me the job, and it was surprising to me, but I think it worked out.